naturopathic doctor, Dr. Ivy Brennan, and we're continuing our series on cold and flu prevention and cold and flu busting tips. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, herbs. And so there's a lot of herbs that I could have picked today, but I just picked 4 specific herbs that we're going to be talking about. So let me first set aside my tea, and I can start with the first herb. So the first herb I want to talk about is goldenseal. So goldenseal is also known as Hydrastis canadensis, and if you live on the Pacific Northwest, an herb very similar to goldenseal would be Oregon grapefruit. And the part of the plant that we use is the root, and what makes it so powerful is that it contains an alkaloid called berberine, which has very strong antibacterial properties as well as being very immunostimulant. So some specific bacteria that it can be used against would be Staphylococcus, Streptococcus pneumoniae, E. coli. It also has very strong antifungal properties, so I use it often if I'm working with women who have yeast infections. So it's a very powerful herb that you can use. Taste-wise, it's probably, of all the herbs that I'm going to be talking about today, it's probably the most intense, most bitter. Another application that I'll sometimes use with this herb is you can buy the powdered form, and mixing it with some bentonite clay, it makes a really good anti-bug paste. So if you get bit, you can apply the paste. I think I had the recipe on my website somewhere. The next herb is mullein, also known as verbascum thapsus. Talk about lisp. So mullein is a very interesting herb because we can use all 3 of its components, so the flowering tops, the leaves, and then the root. And so, if you're familiar with the doctrine of signatures, so the idea that parts of a plant that look like parts of the body also treat that part of the body. So that is one of the cases with verbascum or mullein. So the tops, the flowering tops, are very good as a nervine, so very anti-anxiety, but also has a strong affinity for the lungs, and so does the leaves, also for the lungs. And then the root is very good for the urinary tract. But because we're talking more about colds and flus, I'll focus on the first 2 parts of the plant. So specifically, the leaves are very powerful expectorant, so that can be very useful, specifically if you have an upper respiratory infection and you're trying to get the gunk out. And also the fact that it has the nervine properties can also help with sleep. So as you know, when you're having a cold, sometimes it's very difficult to sleep. And then it just has some general specific antibacterial properties for the lungs. Our next herb is Astragalus, and I really like Astragalus. So the part of the plant that you'll be using, so if you're at the store and you're trying to figure out if it's going to be a good fit for you, it would be the root. And Astragalus helps to stimulate our immune system, specifically the phagocytosis, so the ability of our cells of our immune system to eat the invader. So basically like bad bacteria and viruses. There's been some very good research with Astragalus, specifically with people with immunosuppressive conditions like HIV. So it can be a very powerful herb. One way that you might want to use it would be making a soup. It actually doesn't offer too much flavor, but you could basically boil it in your soup and then remove the herb. So maybe if you watch the first part of my series, we talked a little bit about garlic, and so that those 2 could work quite nice together. And then the last herb that I'm going to talk about, which is probably one of the most famous, one that you probably already heard of, which is Echinacea. And there's actually 3 different types of Echinacea. So the Echinacea that I just showed you is the purpura. So in that one, we use the flowering tops versus the other 2, which are Augustifolia and Palladium, where we use the root. Echinacea is very, very, again, like the other herbs, right? Good for the immune system. There's been some studies using Echinacea and showing that it can decrease cold and flu duration by about 3 to 4 days in comparison with controls. And so some things to note about herbs. So when you're choosing some herbs for immune support, I definitely recommend working with a formula that contains many different types of herbs. I find that can be much more effective. Often I usually say less is more, but when in a case of immune support, specifically if you're coming down with a cold, more can be better. So I will recommend typically higher doses of herbs every 4 hours, specifically when you first start coming down with the signs of a cold. How to prepare herbs. So there's definitely a lot of options. So making a tea can be nice. This is a really nice diffuser. You can see it has, so specifically if you're working with a lot of herbs. One thing to note with teas, so if you're working with herbs that are like the mullein or the Echinacea, especially this form, they work more of like a diffusion. So basically pouring boiling water on top and letting sit for about 15 to 20 minutes covered, versus the roots. And I don't have any seeds today, but both roots and seeds you want to decoct for about 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes even longer. And so that's basically adding the herbs to boiling water and boiling them for an amount of time uncovered. And so typically if you're mixing these types of herbs, I would decoct first, then strain, and with that tea contents, then adding these herbs and then straining. Another preparation that you might be interested in doing would be either a tincture or glycerate. So tincture is an alcohol preparation, but for those that are alcohol sensitive or for children who don't want to have alcohol, a glycerate would also be a good choice as well. You can make your own, but there are also many commercially available brands. Again, very similar kind of dosing. I would probably do about half a teaspoon every 4 hours, or about 4 times a day. And then I don't have it here, but you can always also do capsules if that works better for you. So thank you so much. That was our cold and flu tip for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time when we complete the series. Have a wonderful day. My name is Dr. Ivy Brannon of Simplicity Health Associates, and see you next time.